Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning all. This is the finance report for January. So as the report outlines, I've got a year-to-date operational surplus of just over $27 million more than budget, and we're forecasting an operating surplus at year-end by just under $21 million. So that's an increase of about $1.1 million on where we were this time last month. In sections 4.5 and 4.6 outline the main drivers for that. So just highlighting a couple of those, Mr. Chair. Rec and sport, increased activity and participation is driving higher revenues. Building and planning consent volumes are up, but there's also a contra to that. The costs and processing those is also up. Resource recovery eco-central rebate is increased. The rates levy overstrike, or the additional growth, that's been consistent month on month, forecasting that extra as with the rates penalties. Subvention receipts, 2.8 million, will be received that in March, but it certainly was, it's part of the forecast. Offsetting those, Hagley Park parking fees, we're forecasting an under recovery of $1.7 million at this point. Also a reduction in resource MFE levy, $2.2 million, and also some funding from NZTA by about $600,000 not coming through. So that's the income drivers. In the expenditure side, insurance under budget insurance, we've been highlighting that for several months, so that'll be all the way through to the end of the year, just over $7 million. Personnel costs, so with the vacancies we had planned to fill, we're expecting about $2.6 million at year end to be underspent. Lower processing waste management fees, and saving in transport space with the using changing the electricity contract, but also the using LED lights, which is great to see. And debt servicing, $5.4 million under budget, just lower costs, favourable hedging, and some of the interest rate reduction is playing into that, but it's also the level of borrowing. And then the third to last one, as I mentioned earlier, the building and consenting additional costs coming through, offsetting some of that additional income. And just in the capital space, total capital program is at this stage we're forecasting a position of about just over $32 million underspend. This is broken, I guess, what we call the core program, be about $37 million underspent by year end. And the One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha is ahead of budget and delivery by about $5.2 million. So that's how we get to the net. The expectation is that there'll be requests come through year end, so August space for the carry forwards, but we're just signalling that's likely, but council will decide that in August. So have to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Russell. Really good, and good to see that surplus forecast growing as well. Just one question from me, and I think I ask this all the time. It's just around the capitalisation costs. So just remind me, because I know we've talked about it a lot at audit and risk. Are we still working through that on a regular basis? The capitalisation costs, like I think we talked about monthly or 2 monthly, just to ensure that we're not going to get to year end and then have something go one way or the other. Is that still happening? Absolutely,
Mr. Chair. That's a keen focus for us. So there's a couple of bits to this.
Yep.
One is, it's as you'll be aware, our audit have raised it, the methodology that we're using. So we are reviewing that methodology across the organisation. We've engaged the outside consultants, Deloitte, are coming in and making sure that what we're doing is best practice and is compliant with the accounting standards. And the other space is, are we capturing everything that we should, and what's our, how are we doing that? And so there's ongoing reviews and developing different tools to make sure that what we say we are doing. So that's an ongoing piece of work.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, that's really good. Thank you. Aaron had a question.
Yes, just a clarification. Did you say because of the changing landscape, our debt repayments down?
Mr. Chair. Yep, the costs, we're forecasting $5.4 million less borrowing needs than we had budgeted for. So there's some movement in it. One is most of our debt is what we call hedged, so we've planned it out. But we only borrow what we need. And so when we have additional funds, which we have done for the insurance receipt for the wastewater treatment plant, we've had extra money in our account, so we've needed to borrow less. Yeah, so that's part of that equation as well. So a wee bit in the drop in interest rates, not much, but mainly it's because our borrowing needs have not been as great as we had initially anticipated.
So with the current trend on interest rates, and it in theory will go 2 or 3 more times this year down, is there a chance we could be adjusting the annual plan lower because of our costs will be down?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's a great question. So we, I guess, manage our debt, like I said, and so we will not see a lot of variation up or down because what is important to council is surety on what it's going to be. You know, we only get one crack at setting the rates once a year, so we need to be absolutely sure. So for the next 2 and a bit years, we're pretty confident of where we're going to be. The things that will reduce our interest costs are more likely the amount of money that we borrow. So we will review that as part of the final annual plan process. How much do we need? You know, what's the level of capital delivery, which is the main the need for the borrowings, and is there any other income that we've got that we don't need to borrow for? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Tyrone, Celeste, then Sarah.
Oh, thank you, Sam. Just on the Higley Park parking fees, so was the under recovery because of the delay in the parking meters or other reasons? Well, talk me through that, Russell.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, most of it is the late start. And so we've only really got 1 month's worth of data in here to say what the activity is. So we're estimating what that's likely to be for the remainder of the year. We had budgeted $2.2 million, as the table says, but with it only really starting in November, then we've had very little time to review what that looks like.
Okay, cool. So it's too early to tell. Okay, cool, thank you.
Cool. Celeste.
Thank you. Just a question around, on page 67, around underspend in parks in terms of maintenance. What's driving that? It says something about the timing, but there's no real detail in there.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, we look at that. So there'll be a number of things in that, and probably I'm best to leave it to the head of parks to answer directly on that. I can just give an overview.
Do you want to jump to Rupert?
Sure. As we touched on last time, the underspend is balanced out of the bottom line. We've got the revenue coming in, so overall we're in a good space. It's just across a whole heap of activities where it's sitting in different areas.
Are we able to get a bit more information? Because I think it's come up a few times and maybe there's just a lack of understanding about where that spend is.
Sure, we can come back to you with that.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks, Liz. You good? Cool. Pauline?
Quickly, on page 66, when you talk about the rates levy overstrike, so does that mean that we've got more rateable units than we anticipated and more income from them? Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly right, Councillor. So when we set the rates we anticipate how many units we're going to have.
Yep.
Now we can't wait right to the last minute. Ideally, we'd set it, once we've done the final count, but we don't. There's a lot of work that goes into that work, so we've got to take an earlier point. And you don't want to get too clever and try and get too accurate because there's risk in going the other way. So there's always a little bit, but we try to get as close to that line as possible. So what that particular item is saying is exactly right. The growth was slightly higher than what we anticipated. We'd like it to be less than the amounts here. So that's a bit, but we're reliant on subdivisions being processed, being actioned by QV, by internal process, making sure all that's up to date and through. So we anticipate that work going through as close to the line as we can. But probably being a little bit under is the safest way to be. So that's what that line is.
I'm thinking June, of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that. Celeste is happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thank you very much, Russell. Really good report. Okay, Nikki, do you want to come up for the capital program report, please?